You're watching KLTX, Channel 15, serving the city of Lufkin.
Today on Screen It or Stream It.
A shot in the dark.
But the lights are still on.
A man slumps to the ground.
We're the only ones here.
There has been a murder.
Let me guess, we're all suspects.
And we are all... Way to steal my thunder.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard.
Murder Mystery is rated PG-13 for violence, bloody images, crude sexual content, and language.
It's the story of a stuck-in-a-rut couple, Nick and Audrey, that after 15 years of marriage, finally take their honeymoon.
Nick gets guilted into the trip and somewhat under-delivers on his wife's expectations, due in part to his propensity to lie to make himself look better.
Things take a turn when on the plane flight to Europe, Audrey encounters billionaire Charles Cavendish, who invites them to sail around on his uncle's yacht.
The uncle is getting married, but is also causing family drama that makes the trip at sea awkward for everyone.
Then, one of the guests is murdered.
An escalating series of peril ensues in which everyone is a suspect.
So, what do we think about this one?
We think that Murder Mystery, it's okay. Alright, so as much fun as it was to see Adam Sandler again, and with like a Tom Selleck mustache or whatever, this, meh. That's kind of how I felt, was meh.
I hate this. I hate this a lot.
I don't blame you, and I can see why it would be hateable.
Starting with the mustache. Whoever told him that that was a good idea, stop it.
See, I thought they did that just for the one random sight gag Pink Panther reference. It's like tucked about 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Adam Sandler does not need a mustache. He had some mustache and something else. I can't even remember what it was now. It doesn't work. It's terrible. Like, I can't believe they let him do that. Or made him do that. Or no. And I know he's supposed to be a cop, so it's probably the
it's a New York cop thing.
Yeah, it's the cop stash. But golly, that thing is. Get him a fake one and stick on there or something. Whatever that thing is, it just. I don't like it. I hated this movie so much that I think I got up, I paused it like 4 times, got up and just had to go do something else. And I was like, no, I got to watch this and finish this, and sat down. And it was like work watching this. And I felt sorry for Jennifer Aniston. I'm like, I'm so sorry you're in this. I'm sorry you have to do this. I'm sorry you have to put up with this. And I think it really comes down to what you said earlier. Adam Sandler is kind of, we're going to call it childish, sophomoric humor.
Yeah, he's got a juvenile
humor. That's good. Okay. And like he's just reached an age where the juvenile humor isn't funny anymore. And that was your thought, not mine. But that hits the nail directly on the head.
Or at the very least, it doesn't fit with the work he's doing.
Well, and the problem was he would make a joke that is not funny at all, and then try to milk that joke for like 5 straight minutes, and he would just keep going and going, and instead of it being like, oh, that's funny, and then he just took it up another level, and then another level, and it becomes funnier and funnier. It was not funny. Then you repeat it. Well, the repeated not funny makes it even less funny and tiresome, and it's just like, okay, it wasn't funny to start with.
Right, you get into annoying at that point.
Yeah, and it's just like, good. And like, I don't know how it missed, like, none of the characters are likable. They should have been a likable couple, right? They should have been, to me, they should have been the Griswolds. And the Griswolds weren't particularly, like, awesome people, right? But I still like Clark Griswold. I still liked the kids, even though they were terrible to each other. Yeah. But I still liked them. I don't like these people. They are annoying. These are people, if they're sitting next to you on a plane or on a bus, like, you get up and change seats.
Yeah.
And an entire movie of them is just terrible. And the sad thing is that I actually did laugh several times throughout it, and I would laugh and then stop and go, how come I just laughed at that? But I specifically thinking the Ferrari. They go to get in the Ferrari, and he's like, I'm driving, and she's like, okay. And they jump in, but it's in Europe, so the seats are switched. That's such an old gag. But I laughed at that for some reason. He's like, just forget it. Just go.
Well, it was a good gag. What does they say? Even a broken clock's right twice a day. Yeah. There were several moments that, even though you hated the movie, it had moments that were fine, and that was one of the good gags they had.
Well, and everybody is a stereotype. Like everybody's a caricature.
I liked Luke Evans, Cavendish, because he was the obvious, just horrible, rich, snobby person, and he played it well.
Well, and they're all like. They're just stereotypes. Each one of them is a walking stereotype of some rich, spoiled, person, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It's missing something. It's the humor or something, because you can take that, you can do that, over the top characters, put them all together, and really have something fun. And this is not it. And I think where it misses really big too is it's an ensemble cast, because you do have that murder mystery, and who is it? Is it the son? Is it the nephew? Is it I don't even know what the actress what she was supposed to be before they had the reveal, and she was just there. And
they didn't always explain how the relationships were for several of those guys, but some of them they did. The one guy with the missing hand was, oh gosh. Yeah, that was one of the jokes they took a little too far and kept bringing it back up.
And it wasn't funny to start with. And when you don't like the people, when the jokes aren't funny, and I kept waiting. The trailer looked really funny to me, and I knew it's Adam Sandler Netflix, and those haven't had the best, track record, but I was like, no, that looked funny. This is going to be good. And I kept waiting. And I'm like, well, it's going to be when the murder mystery starts, because that's the whole good, right? It's in the title, murder mystery. And we're going to get to that. And when the murder happened, I paused it. And I don't remember the exact time now, because it's been about a week, but it was close to 50 minutes in an hour and 30-minute movie.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
By the time the story actually, the murder mystery part starts. And the funny thing is, it listed it like an hour and 37 minutes, but it has 7 minutes of credits at the end. So it's an hour and 30-minute movie, and 45 to 50 minutes in is when...
Yeah, that big event.
And you know what? I didn't hate that. The murder mystery was okay. Even though it had no rhyme, no reason, it didn't, it wasn't one of those where they gave you clues that could lead you into stuff. They kept discovering things, and they would discover things, and it would be totally wrong.
Yeah.
And then they would discover another thing, and then it's totally wrong. And so none of it actually leads you. It's not like playing a mystery game, right, where you could sit down and go, ooh, I bet it's her because she did this and there's that. Because they're all these horrible stereotypes of people who would have done that. And then Adam Sandler being the not police detective, he's a police officer. He's lying to his wife about being a police detective, which makes no sense whatsoever. And then that makes him look like a jerk, and then he's a jerk through the entire thing. And that makes him unlikable. And then, it's Jennifer Aniston. She's gonna be likable, right? She's likable and everything, and then she gets swept up in the whole thing, and then they make her annoying, give her annoying traits, and she falls for the dashing Cavendish, and and it's obvious that she's in love with him, and then she's reading these murder mysteries, and she won't listen to anything anybody tells her, and she's like, no, I'm right and you're wrong, even though her husband is supposed to be a police detective in her eyes. And I could go on and on and on about how much I hate this. And I really did. About 20-minute chunks at a time, I would stop and, wander around and get a drink and come back. And I just kept waiting for something to happen, and it didn't.
Of course, you don't really like whodunits anyway, right?
No, I don't.
And I think that may be part of your ire, for me to use a 50 Cent word there, because if you're not a huge fan of the genre anyway, making fun with the genre, I could see that really missing the mark for you. And then on top of that, a bunch of not funny jokes. Yeah, I can see that being really annoying.
Well, every time I see one of these things, I think it's going to be for me, because the idea of it is great. And the last 3 or 4 or 5 of them I have seen, and I'm not going to mention any because they may be your recommendations here in a minute, but I guess we can talk about them if you don't recommend them. But we've seen several, and they just,
they don't do anything for you. Well, there were a couple things I liked. If you've got nothing better to do, it's not a bad way. Make some popcorn if you like a murder mystery.
No, I tried that. I stopped, made popcorn at one point, and said, no, it didn't help.
Well, again, for people who like murder mysteries, I think they're fun. I should have made popcorn, actually. That would have been better. But but I didn't. So
it helped.
You know, I was holding the baby, so it just wouldn't have worked. She'd been hands and everything. So I liked the twists and turns, even though they weren't great. And there was no way to predict anything. Like you said, they didn't give you enough clues to try to solve the thing anyway. In hindsight, there were a couple things they did throw at you, but they were so innocuous and didn't lead anywhere that there was no reason to think they meant anything until it came back around. Like, okay.
Literally through the entire thing, they would give you like a hint that, it's the butler, which is, there is no butler. But
that is like the quintessential the butler did it
it's like,
thing.
Okay, it's the butler. Yeah, that's the one inkling they give you. And then he dies. No, it's not him. It's the heiress. It's definitely that, she's dead too. And they did that through the entire thing until they whittled it down to, it's got to be you. You're the only one left.
The last one standing. All right, well, if you're looking for something different, or what do you have for a streaming recommendation for something that does hit the mark for you?
Okay, so again, I don't like murder mystery, so I kept thinking of different ones, and I was like, I didn't really like that. I didn't really care for that one. So how about already murdered mystery? I'm going to go with 13 Ghosts, which does not have the same feel, not comedy as a horror movie, but I love this one. It's kind of gross and grotesque and over the top, and these people get trapped in a house and like evil spirits start coming back to life, and you find out this guy had trapped all these people in the house and killed them, and they all tortured souls, and they're trying to figure out why he put them in the house, what's he trying to do, and then you figure out he's like, trying to activate this machine that requires these 13 souls, and they've got to try to stop it. So you still kind of get the mystery part of trying to figure it out. But it had really good horror elements to me, and I know this one wasn't like super popular, and it's I think come out of the 90s, probably early 2000s, and but I love it. I bought it on DVD and watch it over and over again. It's one of the last like horror movies that I just really, really enjoyed.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen that one, but I would like to.
You should check it out. It is very bloody and gross.
So I had 3 good streaming recommendations, I think. One of which was really liked by everybody, and one of which was not that well liked, and the other one was just downright hated, which I think is actually my favorite of the 3, so I don't know what that says about me. But I'd like to talk about the other 2 in passing just because I think they're memorable, specifically Date Night, which was not well received. I was surprised. I thought that one was funny. And
which one was that?
Date Night was Tina Fey and I just forgot his name, The Office. Michael Scott. What's his name?
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. Yes, thank you. And basically, they kind of a stuck in a rut couple, and they go out to the restaurant. He forgot to make reservations, and so they steal someone's reservation. Turns out it was some people who had stolen something from the mob, and so it just starts this horribly escalating situation, and it's got some juvenile humor and was very well panned by critics, and they just didn't like it. I thought it was funny. More recently, 2018, Game Night, Jason Bateman and
we watched that one.
Yeah, that one was funny and well received. People loved it, and that one was really great. But what I'm going to recommend is the Radioland Murders, which, if you've like a screwball comedy from the 1930s, is what they were emulating with it. It's a 90s from 1994. George Lucas produced or directed, or he was involved in it. And basically, you've got the guy that's getting framed for a string of murders that he didn't commit, and he's got the soon-to-be divorced wife, so they have to work together, and there's a lot of that similar conflict, and the dark murderous undertones too are similar in a comedy, which is kind of a weird juxtaposition. I like it much more than Murder Mystery, because I like the silliness and the slapstick of it, and it's just, I saw it years ago and I've seen it since, and I still like it, so I thought it was fun. But yeah, Radioland Murders.
I thought for sure we went and saw Murder on the Orient Express when it came out, the newer one, and that it was not very good. I enjoyed it much more than Murder Mystery, though.
Were it a comedy, it would have been a good recommendation.
Clue. I figured Clue.
Oh, Clue, yeah. Clue is another good one, too.
I don't really care for it. It's the Murder Mystery, but I think if you're going to do the over-the-top characters, I thought Clue did it much better than Murder Mystery did.
Next up, we are going to do our top 5 each. Top 5 Firefights. All right, for me, I kind of whittled it down that I made some rules for myself.
I did too.
Both sides shooting at each other, so not like a one-sided thing where nobody gets to respond. I also excluded artillery and vehicle battles, which effectively eliminated Star Trek from my list. So you'll be proud of me. There is no Star Trek on my list.
Yet you still mentioned it.
Well, what are you going to do? I also excluded large-scale military battles. Now, not like a battle within a battle, maybe, but something that's just a huge cinematic thing. I cut those out for me because I wanted smaller firefights.
Well, I picked firefight. So first of all, it couldn't be like one guy, right? If it's a firefight, there should be multiple people shooting back and forth. And
okay.
I know there's better ones filmed than what I picked, but I picked my favorites.
Yes, these are our favorites, not necessarily the objectively best. These are our favorites. So
I have a reason for it. So
all right. So what's your number 5 pick?
All right, my number 5 pick is the opening shootout from Baby Driver.
Oh yeah,
because it's Edgar Wright film and it's set to the music, the gunfire, like as they're shooting, it's like with the drum beats of the music, and I had never seen that before. I thought that was so brilliant and so creative, and that made me so happy. And while the firefight itself maybe not the most spectacular thing, just the stylized like coolness of all of the guns going off with the music was just too cool to like not make my list. So that's my number 5.
All right, well, my number 5, I'm going back to 1987 RoboCop, and I give the year so you don't get confused because the remake, I mean, it had some good firefights too, but meh. This one was iconic for me growing up, and I know I should not have watched this movie growing up, but hey, that's the way it is. The Drug Factory. He storms in, the guys are making drugs, and he tells them, come quietly or there'll be trouble. And they say, we're not putting up with that, although they were a bit more explicit, and then bullets started flying. So then, RoboCop just proceeds to shoot everybody. It's great, and he does the whole thing under fire. They're shooting at him, he don't care, he's made of titanium. It's just a fun scene, like heroic, he's just walking in, White Knight style.
Yeah, it was a great one.
Plus it's got those late 80s blood squib special effects, so blood going everywhere. It's just fantastic to watch.
So my number 4, and I don't know how we do a list without mentioning him, is John Wick. And it's the club scene from John Wick. Again, if you want to talk about like stylized like violence,
oh my gosh,
just John Wick like working his way through the club with people shooting at him shooting people, and it coined a new phrase, gun fu. And I mean, how can you not like that? If you haven't seen the John Wicks, like you got to see John Wick, and that was to me just so much fun because of the stylized, and he's karate chopping and actually reloading the gun and shooting people, and I just love that to death.
So before we go on, read my number 9.
Everything in John Wick. That's right.
Yeah, so that I was aware of that, but I had some others I liked more that were more fun for me. So I couldn't do this list without one of the iconic gunfights I've ever seen, Dirty Harry, the sidewalk scene. He's got a hot dog in one hand, a .44 Magnum in the other. These guys come out of the bank, guns blazing, and they have a little shootout right there. And I say little because he only had 6 bullets and completed the firefight with that. That's all he needed.
Was that fire or 6?
Yes, and that punchline is one of the most iconic moments probably in cop movie history, certainly. And so it's a great gunfight. Of course, it's got that kind of 70s like gritty realism, so I like that.
Well, and I'm not a big fan of cop movies or gangster movies and stuff like that. I should be. I just never do seem to enjoy them. So I know I left stuff off my list people will be upset about because there's there's all these gangster movies and things that I didn't get. But my number 3 is Desperado, Antonio Banderas. It's the opening scene in the bar. Cheech is behind the bar. And again, I think it's like 3 bad guys.
Is that the guitar?
Yeah. If for nothing else, for the guitar case, he sits there like looking for it's a sequel to El Mariachi, and he comes in and he's got the guitar case, and everybody knows that the Mariachi's going around with his guitar case full of guns, and he sets the guitar case down. They're like, "What's in there?" And he's like, "It's a guitar," and they're like, "Yeah, show us," and he opens the lid, and sure enough, there's a guitar in there. They're like, "Oh, okay," and you hear a click, and the false guitar top like opens up and just full of guns, and then the firefight ensues, and it's a great scene with him shooting up the bar and diving behind tables, but it just, again, for like personal favorites, it just puts a huge smile on my face. It's Robert Rodriguez, so the violence is good.
And I have a surprisingly low number of Westerns in my Firefights, because there are tons of Western shootouts that are really great, but for some reason they just didn't strike me as being the ones I wanted to go for. My number 3 is the Boondock Saints, the hotel shootout. Of course, you'll remember the scene, the rope-toting Charlie... Not that one, but that one was great. But the rope-toting Charlie Bronson wannabe, and then they fall from the ceiling, bad action movie style, hanging upside down and just have this fight. And they're in the middle of the room, so it's just...
They're dangling upside down and spinning.
And guns a-blazing, and the mobsters try to shoot back, but they were so surprised they just didn't really stand much of a chance. And it's just a fun scene.
So I had the Boondock Saints, and again, it's one of those pretty much every scene in Boondock Saints.
It's great.
It was one of the ones I picked, but didn't make the list. I do love that, and the teasing him about needing the rope, and why do I need the rope? Yeah, I love that. My number 2 is the lobby scene from The Matrix.
Oh!
For just sheer wanton destruction. They blew apart the hotel lobby into or building lobby into just teeny tiny little pieces. There were so much bullets and explosions, and then you get the whole Matrixy, bullet time stuff, and it was just so cool. And if you ever watch any of the behind the scenes of the making of stuff, the fact that it was all like practical effects, and they were really blowing that stuff up and knocking chunks of column out, and 2
hours to reset that room after each take.
I don't doubt it. They had to rebuild the room because they blew it all apart.
And you just stole my number 1. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. That is just a fantastic shootout, just for style and everything.
Stylistically, it might be the coolest shootout of all time.
Cool.
But my number 1 is just because I like one better.
Wait, I gotta get my number 2 first.
I know.
Okay,
I'm not gonna do But that's the reason it's number 2 and not number 1, is because my number 1 just has more of sentimental value to me than The Matrix does.
So my number 2, I'm going with, I just forgot his name, Quentin Tarantino, Inglourious Bastards, The Basement Shootout. This is the most stressful shootout I've ever seen. And part of it is because of the 15 minutes leading up to the moment, because they're having this conversation, and
so tense.
I watched the clip of it just because I watched all of these just to remind myself whether they really were good shootouts or not, which is why Equilibrium didn't make the list, because it wasn't as cool as I remembered it being. That's another matter entirely. But just the tension built in that scene, I just started getting the shakes just watching without even context. And so it's the most stressful, and when it happens, it's so fast. Just boom! And I love it because it's awesome, but also kind of hate it. That's why I didn't make number 1, because it's so tense that I feel sick watching it even. But it's just a great firefight. Chaos, total chaos.
Well, since we already kind of spoiled your number 1, do you have anything else you want to say about it?
I do, and I have...
We'll come back to the others if you want to. But do you want to say anything about The Matrix, since that was your number 1? That you didn't already get to say?
No, it's just that it's so fun to watch, and again, practical explosions, because it's... Most stuff, they rely so heavily on CGI. Nothing wrong with good CGI. Never would complain about good CGI. But there's just something about when all the just... junk is flying through the air, it's just great to watch. It's just fun to watch.
Well, and again, it would have been my number 1, except there's this huge problem in cinema today. Mm-hmm. There's a huge problem in television today, and it's storytelling.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the lines, we've kind of lost the art of storytelling. Mm-hmm. And my number 1 is a Western, and it's at the end of the movie, and it's because there's so much, the movie just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then there's this shootout at the end, and it's from the Young Guns, which
that's a good choice.
So there's the gunfight at the house, and they all get trapped in this house. We're not trapped there. They go to see their lawyer, but there's this build-up, right? There's this journey that each one takes, and there's all this character development. You learn about the guys, and you come to either like them or hate them, depending on, I guess, your perspective. And then at the end, they go to see the lawyer, and they get in the lawyer's house. And the lawyer's a good guy. He's just trying to do what's right, and his wife's in there. And then the law shows up, all of it.
All of them, yeah.
They're turning wagons over in the street, and they got Gatling guns, and they're like, y'all come out, or, we're blowing this place down. And they're like, no, we're... of course, Billy the Kid always has something smart alecky to say, and can never take us alive. and they proceed to have this massive gunfight between the house and the street.
Yeah.
Basically, with, again, just bullets flying everywhere. But just the way it was shot and the emotional impact it had on me, and I love westerns, and I love the Young Guns way more than I should, probably based on everybody else's opinion. But but just watching that build up to it, and then it was literally that you're like, oh my god, they're not going to make it. Like, how are they going to make it out of that? And to me, that made it my number one pick for a firefight, because I was more emotionally invested in that than anything else.
Well, I'm going to pinch hit a number one since we stole the Matrix, which was my favorite number one.
Well, you got extra ones there. We can talk about this.
In Clear and Present Danger, which was like 92-ish,
that's another one.
94, I'm sorry, the motorcade ambush. There is a bit, when they're in South America somewhere, but they're in, I think, 4 or 5 just big white SUVs, and they're driving around town with an ambassador and Jack Ryan. So if you like the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan stuff, this is one of the better ones because Harrison Ford. But they're driving down, and suddenly this bus comes in front of them, and a rocket-propelled grenade blows up the car in front, and people just come out of every window and just start shooting. And the motorcade is light armored, can't stand up to the grenades, so they start driving back, trying to get out of the street because it's a very tight space. There's no room to turn around, and then another bus blocks them in on the back. So, and more grenades come down. The cars start getting blown to bits, and so as the bullet-resistant windows get blown out, all the security guys start shooting back. So it's just this huge firefight in a very confined space. Apparently that's a thing for me, but it's just very tense, very fun to watch. Harrison Ford, can't go wrong, and I'm afraid that's all our time. So no honorable mentions today, but thank you so much for watching Screen Reader Stream.
And remember, don't take your kids to the movies on Tuesday nights, because that's when we go.